I'd like to welcome Professor Gilliland to our weekly reading of Sam. It's an honour to have him here. Tanner is one of the most eminent experts on Jack Whalen fiction. So
it's true. As a student of 80s Mormon fiction and a professor of said subject, I'm happy to lend my expertise. Yeah. I just want to make it known that I made this. I sewed this. Jared, you're not the only one who can sew. How are we all today? Good, bad? Sound off in the comments.
Pop off. Well, happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate. I feel like we haven't seen these guys in a while, so we should be like, what's going on?
Sorry, y'all.
I'm going to Montana tomorrow for Thanksgiving.
I've been recovering from a breakup and illness.
And TikTok mania is saving him.
Or thrusting me even deeper into the crevasse.
Mm-hmm. You won't know unless you try. Yeah, that's basically it. By the time this comes out, I'll have a new song out, so look me up on Spotify.
You're just popping out songs all the time.
Okay, vulnerability moment. It's annoying because, like, I feel like if you release a song, you have to be excited about your own work and you have to be, like, your biggest believer in your own stuff, you know?
I mean, not always.
I was hoping you'd say that.
I think it's... No, I mean, your stuff is awesome, though. You should be hyped about it.
Well, I don't know if I do this with just my stuff or with all, like, songs, because I do feel like we all have quite, like, specific musical tastes or quite strict standards. Like, we're not really used to listening to a lot of amateur musicians, like, on a day-to-day basis.
These days, I listen to, like, a lot of just, like, local friends' music and stuff.
And that's one of the cool things about you. But anyway, I feel like I judge the stuff I make by the worst moments in it. Like, I judge the song as a whole by, like, the lyrics that I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
You're like, everyone is going to hate that line and be like, why are you
Everyone's going to think this whole song is Yeah, that's exactly how my brain works. And I'm like, all I can think about is, like, the two lines in the song I hate the most, or, like... And I'm like, what were you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? Why wouldn't you have changed that? But then it's like... Sometimes you just think things will be fine and you're lazy.
This is art, baby.
So anyway, please be nice to me about the song.
Pop off in the comments.
Chapter 8 of Sam.
Whew. Like getting back on a horse made of pain.
Well, please let us know what you guys are doing for Thanksgiving, if anything. And, if any shit goes down at Mormon Thanksgiving dinners, we would love to hear about it. Oh, it would be nice to do a little post-Thanksgiving episode where we just read out everyone's most... Everyone can just commiserate with each other.
That actually would be funny. Let's do it.
All right. I don't even remember what happened last time. Oh, the return missionary woman in the ward and Sam were having some, like, banter. Like, they had, like, a meet cute that was kind of bitter, and then seems like they turned into friends and they're going to get married and be together forever. The next day, I dropped by at 7. She wasn't ready, so her aunt continued the Lara lectures. She's so healthy, and her teeth, ask to see her teeth sometime.
Never look a gift woman in the mouth.
Lara showed up when we looked at a newspaper to see about a movie. We ruled out the R's, marked out the PGs, with obviously lurid titles. Oh, marked out the PGs with obviously lurid titles.
Were there
what
a lot
would
of
be a lurid title in the 80s?
In a PG movie?
I'd already seen the G's. Finally, we were... When? So in the 5 weeks since your wife has died and...
He probably dropped his son off at his grandmother's house and then went and saw Bug's Life by himself or whatever was going on in the 80s.
What would be a lurid PG title in 1983? I would love to know. Finally, we were left with 3 PGs. It's a whole system trying to go to a movie as a Mormon. She had a magazine that rated movies. She looked up the 3 in question. Well, she said, they're basically all right, except for a little nudity. Oh my God, the whole question of what art they consume is just like whether it meets these childish, arbitrary ideas. Like, it'd be good for you to see a little nudity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, he needs to... unwind a tiny bit.
Look at a boob, I am begging you.
As a kid, I would buy VHSs and then send them into CleanFlix to get edited. Mm-hmm. And then one time, they added in a bunch of stuff. They added in new subtitles and, like, cut out scenes, like a whole actual scene.
Oh, I thought you were saying
the ending of the movie.
They added in just, like, accidentally a bunch of sex scenes from other movies. You're supposed to go out and I was like, yes. You're just forced to watch the worst stuff. Their X-rated file got. A little nudity, I asked. Does that mean little in time or an area of body exposed?
Oh my god.
Grim. She smiled and shook her head. No movie, right? Right. I'm still reeling from seeing your neck. A little nudity, does that mean little in time or in the area of body exposed? She said.
I'm sorry, were the Mormons in the 80s Amish?
Is she just saying, like, let's not go to a movie? And he's saying, I'm still reeling from seeing your neck. So that's flirting. After a couple...
Salmon heat is really not a fun time.
Oh, I know. After a couple of games of pit with her aunt, I asked Lara if we could drop by and see Paul. Who's Paul?
Paul.
Also, what's the name of the girl? Is it Lara? Is Lara the... Yeah, it is Lara. Do you remember who Paul is? Okay. He'd taken his PhD comprehensive coursework exam that day, and I wanted to see how he'd done. I passed, he shouted as he opened the door. We sat down while he gave us a question-by-question playback. I didn't understand a word he was saying, but I knew he was happy. You should celebrate tonight. Let us buy you a treat. We drove to my favourite ice cream store. I suggested we get banana splits. Oh my god, Tana, I can't deal with the next line. I thought we were gone from this topic forever. Not for me, thank you, Lara said. I don't eat anything with refined sugar in it. Wow, the perfect woman. She's a strange one, I thought. Well, what would you like? Could I just have a plain banana? So what's wrong with refined sugar? I asked after the waitress left. It's so interesting because, like, earlier when he was doing his home teaching, he was, like, judging the girl for making a really, like, sugar-laden dessert. Essentially, he just wants a woman who is thin and eats sugar. He's thin without trying.
Yeah.
A woman must be thin, but to, like, do anything to try and be thin, like, only eat salad or not eat sugar, I don't know. But I
so
feel
fussy.
Like Sam's
only
be into
cares
this.
about, yeah.
And I swear something was going on in Jack's life around food and body image stuff in this book. Because there was, like, nothing about it in the first book. And it's come up repeatedly in this book. Like, it's just a theme that we didn't see before.
We got new themes?
New fucking themes. So what's wrong with refined sugar, I asked. It's not good for the body. Don't you ever have anything sweet, I asked. Oh, sure. I make a little candy with honey, raisins, and wheat germ. Inwardly, I groaned. But it's paid off. I've never had a cavity. Yeah, because honey won't give you a cavity, but regular sugar will. Maybe honey has, like, something in it that protects your teeth. I don't know.
Probably
this is probably not scientific.
It's made by dancing insects.
Yeah.
It's...
Oh, this is linked to her having the amazing teeth her aunt talked about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no better opportunity. Like, when she said, asked to see her teeth, I was like, there's no way that won't come across weird. But she made the cavity comment, and he said, I've heard that. Can I see your teeth?
I know that this sounds like an absurd situation, like who is, like, all looking each other in the mouths, but I come from a family of, like, dentists and orthodontists. So everyone's like, oh, your bicuspids are just looking incredible.
Must be nice. The money I've spent on dental work this year devastates me. Devastates me. Easily more than I've made from Patreon alone in this year.
Wow.
It's similar.
Because you're making a ton on
So I'm making
Patreon.
so much from this Patreon.
Nice.
I love how the neck thing is that's gonna keep being their flirtatious thing. Because then she says, you've seen my neck. That should be enough. Come on, your aunt promised me. She did not promise you. That's a bold-faced lie. She did not. She said, ask to see her teeth sometime. Also, the aunt... Sorry, I'm being so annoying, but it's like the aunt doesn't have promising power for you to show a part of your body to some... It doesn't matter. She gave me a warm smile, but I forgot to look at her teeth. A few minutes later, our food came. Paul and I dug into our banana splits while Laura peeled her banana. All I have left now in school, Paul said eagerly, is a little more research, then writing the dissertation. Wasn't this supposed to be their date night? Why is Paul there? That hasn't really been explained. It's like he went to pick her up at 7 for a date, and then they're, like, getting ice cream with his friend. Is
he their
just
chaperone?
Yeah, I think it is maybe showing...
You know, they're going to a PG movie with a potentially somewhat lurid title, so, you know.
Yeah, because it always seems like there's, like, a parent there for half of the date. Like, they're always, like, hanging out playing a board game with the parents.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just the remnants of the patriarchal marriage system.
Oh, this isn't the remnants. This is the full enchilada.
Well, it's come down a few shades from like biblical, like just purely.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we're still talking about Paul's dissertation. And then what? Get a job someplace. Maybe Bell Labs in New Jersey.
Paul, you're not the only one with a PhD.
Who is Paul and why do I care about him? What about marriage, I asked. There'll be time for that after my dissertation. Oh, okay. I get it. Now I know the role that Paul's going to play in this. Not many LDS girls in New Jersey. You'd better spend time on it before you leave. He considered that for a few spoonfuls. You're right. I should get married before I leave Utah. Who do I see about that?
I never thought of that.
Wait, when is he leaving? He's just got a little more research than writing the dissertation.
Did we already hear what his dissertation is about?
Finding a marriage while having to write your dissertation seems like quite an intense goal.
Yeah.
And no, we didn't. I don't think we even know what his PhD is in. It's not important, but the important thing here is to not delay childbirth for a PhD.
Yeah, never.
See, Laura asked. First, you have to start dating. I don't know anybody. How about in your ward? I'm the assistant clerk, so it's not like I'm a stranger to the girls in the ward. After all, my name's on all their donation receipts. Lara and I looked at each other. Paul, Lara suggested. I know a girl who goes to the U. She works part-time in our store. I think I can talk her into going out with you. Once. I've never been on a date. What do I do? Well, Lara said, you can always take her to a movie. With just a little nudity, I added. What? Paul asked, now even more worried. Oh, or, Lara reconsidered, you can take her to dinner. Alone, he asked? Do I have to be alone with her? Is that a weird couple of paragraphs? I was like struggling to follow that.
Yeah.
Okay,
and so
I'm
we
not
were
just
both.
lying.
This is
like,
Jack
what?
Wayland. We're back.
So what we learned from the first 2 pages is PG films are smart. All of them have a little bit of nudity in.
A tiny bit showing
and heaven
necks.
forbid we see nudity.
You should not see neck until the first date.
Thoughts.
Yes, of course. Especially if you've seen a neck.
That is quite the life, though, having to run away from sexual thoughts, because I just feel like things will become more and more sexual. You can't repress your sexuality ultimately. It will just come out in more and more dysfunctional ways. I still don't know who Paul is, and it's bothering me, but I'm like, can I be bothered to figure it out?
Do I have to be alone with her? What's that about?
But yeah, you're definitely ready to get married in a few months while finishing a dissertation.
He's terrified of being alone with a woman. That can only mean one of 2 things. A, he has claustrophobia, maybe, just can't handle or closeted gay. Something tells me Jack Wayland is not about to approach the theme of homosexuality in 1980s Mormon literature.
Tana, is Paul one of the home teaching people?
Is it his actual home teacher?
Who is
companion?
Paul?
Because remember, he has his idiot buddy who he was just dragging along for fun. So maybe Paul is his original home teaching companion.
No, Paul is the home teaching one that had the physics problem. That's who Paul is.
Okay, physics
so he's
problem,
the teachee.
Paul.
Physics Paul. So Paul's gonna write his physics dissertation.
I forgot this whole book is gonna be about his home teaching cluster or whatever.
Yeah. A week later, we arranged to have Paul and his date to dinner at Lara's place.
His HT-Cule.
What?
HT-Cule.
What's that?
Your home teaching Cule.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, my brain is not. Her aunt left the house as we finished the preparations for the evening. Paul nervously paced back and forth as Lara and I set the table. What do I say to her, he asked, wiping his forehead with a linen napkin from the table, then tossing it back on a plate. If you're this worried about just talking to a date, you are not ready to get married. You should not be pursuing dating with the goal of marriage. You should be pursuing it with just the goal of learning about communication and relationships.
Focus on academia. Put your career before everything.
Talk about the weather, I suggested, placing the napkin back in place. That was all that was required for Mormon men in the 80s. Oh, sure. He sighed with relief, but then panicked again. Tell me something to say about the weather. It's hot for this time of year, I suggested. Thanks. Thanks for that one. Thanks for that one, Phil. The doorbell rang and Lara got it. Julie came bouncing in. She was a sophomore in physical education, blonde and energetic.
Just how Sam likes him. Are we in for a...
She'd be a Lululemon bitch
contender?
if she was in our modern
sure.
age. Sorry I'm late. Our game went into extra innings, but we won. Julie, Lara said.
I like her voice.
Thank you.
I hope we get more of her dialogue.
This is Paul and this is Sam. Hi, Julie, I said. Lara's told me a lot about you. Paul shook her hand in a stiff missionary style. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today. Then, almost ominously, he added, everybody's talking about you. She flinched just a little, but then smiled. Lara interceded. Why don't you sit down and I'll get us something to nibble on while the casserole cooks? Lara left and the party ground to a halt. Well, here we are, Julie said warmly. Seconds ticked by. Yes, we are. We're here, Paul said desperately.
We're just being here now.
More dead time broken by Paul blurting, I'm hot for this time of year. Oh, sure, she agreed. We were saved by Lara bringing in some dip and a bowl of potato chips. How nice, Julie bubbled. She tasted the dip. This is delicious. What is it, Lara? A shrimp and clam dip. One of my aunts taught me how to make it before she passed away. I did a really weird intonation.
All of a sudden, she became Irish.
you're like, the character will unfold, and then you're like, ooh. How soon before? Paul asked, eyeing the dip suspiciously. We ignored him. I tried some and liked it. Paul tried, but in the process knocked the bowl onto the carpet. Classic hijinks. Oh no, he moaned, falling to his knees and scooping up the dip in his hands and plopping the mess on the coffee table. Then he tried to wipe his hands with the cloth on the coffee table, managing to spill the chips too.
Why did he just throw it on the coffee table?
I'm really not sure.
Ew.
While he apologized over and over again. Again, is this a man ready for marriage?
Paul, are you drunk?
Is this a man who should have a PhD? Is this a doctor? What
this is
does
not
it
a
mean
man of science.
But you are. This is perfect. You look like a physics professor today.
Man of letters.
In a minute, it was all cleaned up. Which I am impressed by, because it sounds like it was, like, quite the mess.
He threw a handful of goopity
dip,
goop.
which he then transferred to the coffee table.
Which had a cloth.
Having bits drip on the way to the coffee table, and they cleaned all that up in a minute. As someone who regularly cleans up cat vomit, I highly doubt it. Paul, Julie said, can I give you a little advice? You seem so tense. You need to learn to relax your body.
And he's like, please don't tempt me, foul woman.
Relax, Paul croaked, his voice at least an octave above normal. My body has just destroyed Lara's dead aunt's chip dip, and you ask me to relax? My body feels like it's made out of stiff cardboard. Let me teach you an exercise that will help, Julie said. Just lean back and relax. She rearranged Paul's head against the back of the swivel rocker, then encouraged Lara and me to sit on the couch and follow along. Are we doing a physiotherapy class right now? Okay, are we all ready? First thing, everybody relax your toes. Think of calmness flowing over your toes. Paul sat up. It turns out my toes are never very tense. It's okay, just sit back. Now let's all relax our ankles. Concentrate on your ankles. Paul, are your ankles relaxed? Okay, now relax your legs. Do you feel the relaxing essence flowing into your legs? Oh, this is derivative. I'm offended. She waited a few seconds. Now, let's all relax our lower trunks. Think of the calming essence flowing into your lower trunks. What's the lower trunks? Are you afraid to say bum or butt?
I think this is your trunk.
Really?
So you're like lower abdomen.
Paul suddenly stood up. What's wrong? Julie asked. I have to go to the bathroom. He left, opening doors at random until he found the bathroom.
Could also be talking about penises.
He just got a huge boner and has to run
in
off.
your lower trunk.
Lara shook her head and started to laugh. Julie, I'm sorry about this. You're being such a good sport. Can you hold out through dinner? I sense such potential in him, don't you? Julie said. 80s Mormon patriarchy. You're kidding, I asked.
Potential for what?
Sam can't believe that she sees potential in this man, who I would argue has been less unpleasant than Sam was while dating Charlie, and just generally throughout this book.
Them's are facts.
In a minute, Paul returned and sat down, his back still ramrod straight. Laura went to check on the food. His back... So, did he pull his back then? So, exercise science is a bullshit degree. That, again, I just sense...
Yes!
That the big theme is anti. Thank you. Julie stood behind Paul's chair and massaged his neck and shoulder muscles.
Okay, he's gonna blow a gasket.
He's gonna bust a nut here at the dinner table. You have very strong shoulder muscles. That's from doing this, he said, shrugging his shoulders.
Just a
That's
real
not the kind of
shruggy
progressive
guy.
overload you need, Paul. Does this feel good? Oh, yes, very good. Tell me about yourself, she said. I'm an assistant clerk. Really? My father was a state clerk before my parents left on their mission. My parents are gone this year too. My dad works for an oil company. I bet he fucking does.
Oh, wow.
If your father were here, do you know what I'd do? I'd ask him about my PF-19 report.
Oh.
So Jack's been a state clerk.
Humble brag, Mr. Wayland.
Write what you know. He'd help you. He's very good at reports. Paul's eyes were
Is this
partially... How do you
flirting?
know that? How do you know he's good at reports? Who told you that? Did he tell you that? I don't trust him. Paul's eyes were partially closed as Julie massaged his shoulders. You know, if the other secretaries just got their reports in on time, a clerk's job would be a lot easier.
I'm
Again,
always saying it.
Jack airing his personal gripes. He really is trying to educate. Like, you see the lessons sprinkled in throughout the book. Yeah. That's just what Daddy used to say. Ding ding, still says Daddy. She's probably going to be pretty compliant. Next, Julie began to massage his scalp. You have a very loose scalp. Paul opened his eyes and looked worried. You mean it might fall off? Oh no, it's good to have a loose scalp. People with tight scalps go bald. Here, reach up and move it around. See if it moves.
Oh.
How loose is your scalp?
I don't know. I need like a phrenologist to tell me.
Sam, do you... Oh, how about that? Paul exclaimed. It really is loose, isn't it? Sam, do you have a loose scalp? I don't know. Julie, see if he does. She tested my scalp with her fingers. It's loose, but not as loose as yours, Paul. Isn't that wonderful
you're the
about
loosiest,
my scalp?
goosiest one here.
Paul grinned. I always test the scalps of the guys I date, and I don't remember anyone with a looser scalp than yours. How about that? He said proudly. Watching them, I had the feeling I was in a foreign country.
Where nothing makes sense. Yeah, I get it.
And, Julie continued, your nose. I've made noses my hobby. I even have a nose scrapbook. I like your nose.
She's quirky.
She is horny for Paul. My nose, too, Paul said, almost unable to contain his delight. I hardly think about it, except when I have a cold. He was now touching his nose, feeling its shape, moving it from side to side. It was gross to watch.
Gross. Ew.
Sam's just like watching all of this, like, because the other girl he's on a date with is in the kitchen, so he's just observing them.
Like, I want to vomit. Also, blonde, energetic, going for Paul. Get real, Jack.
And she also has like, well, it's like in the way that she made him do the stretches, and then his back seemed to like get weird, and he had to go to the bathroom. It's like she's positioned as not being like good at her craft, or like even though she's like studying exercise science, she's giving bunk advice, and like they gave a woo feel to her saying like stretch, and it was kind of like a mix of like stretching and like meditation almost, but it's like clear that Jack didn't know what he was talking about. You've really neglected your body, haven't you? I concentrated on my mind. And I've concentrated on the body. There's so much we could teach each other, isn't there? Tell me, do you ever get any exercise? Swimming, for instance? Oh, sure, I swim. I'm an Eagle Scout. You're an Eagle Scout, she asked in awe. That's so wonderful. Tell me some other things about yourself.
Please go on.
Sometimes I go swimming on campus. I like to submerge and sit motionless on the bottom of the pool.
Just dissociate for a minute.
No kidding. I go swimming all the time. Wait, I think I've seen you on the bottom. I went last Thursday. I saw you. I asked the lifeguard to check if you drowned. Do you remember seeing me there? Without my glasses, I can't see anything. He was still touching his nose. Can I ask you a personal question? I guess so. What do you do about nose hairs? I escaped to the kitchen. Lara was a flurry of efficiency. How's it going in there? She asked. You wouldn't believe it. We've created a monster. Things are about ready here, she said. Lara, do you like to cook? Sure. Why? Just wondering.
I'm not really what you would call domesticated.
My dead wife told me to find a woman who likes to cook, so... On my way back, I swiped an olive.
Do you like to do the dishes?
Julie was massaging Paul's scalp again. His glasses were off, his eyes were closed, and he was very relaxed. I went on a mission to Nebraska, he said slowly. Tell me about it. Well, it's mostly rural, you know. Oh. Yeah, they have farms and ranches in Nebraska, more farms in eastern Nebraska, but more ranches in western Nebraska. How do they ever decide on something like that? I think it depends on the type of soil.
Is he just studying something with incredible earning potential? What is going on? Why is she so horny for this guy?
Yeah, I mean, physics PhD. I would assume so.
We're assuming he's a
But also,
man of Jack's trade.
lest we forget, Charlie, objectively a top tier person in the dating pool, not even the Mormon dating pool, the global dating pool.
The Utah Senator
Sam.
dating pool.
Yeah, settled for Sam.
Oof, grim.
Yeah, a lot of the couples seem mismatched in this book. Oh, sure, it would, wouldn't it? You're so smart. Now you tell me about yourself, Paul asked. Well, I'm a PE major. Let's see, I teach the family relations class in Sunday school. I think family relations are important, especially to a family, Paul said drowsily. That's so true. Some couples, before they get married, don't sit down and talk about important things, like how many children they want.
Yeah, and they just... they find their favorite ice cream flavor and they get married and that's it.
I still think it's weird how much people think they can, like, predict how many children they want, or, like, that should be something to decide in advance rather than, like, feel it out. Like, maybe you have a general idea, but you're going to have no idea what it would be like to be a parent until you do it. And who's going to say you're going to want to do it 4 times versus 1?
I think more people should consider when they want any...
Yep.
Sorry, do whatever you want. I'm trying not to tell people
Paul
what
does
to
not
do.
agree. I want as many as my wife and I can handle. Oh, I agree. You do? And we're taught that communications are important to a marriage. A husband and wife should be able to talk. Well, like we are tonight.
I don't want to freak you out, but your voice acting this episode is incredible.
Oh my god, thank you. I feel like I finally found my groove with her.
Yeah.
At first it was a bit like,
And him too.
Yeah. There was magic between them. This is like the pinnacle of like communication. This is
magic. This
like
is
you're
our
just
idea of
literally
magic.
telling each other basic facts about yourself. There's no real conflict potential.
And
there.
not just basic facts, less than basic. You're talking about Nebraska.
Yeah.
It couldn't be worse.
Nebraska. Less than basic. Here they were, involved in one of the all-time dumb conversations, yet there were sparks flying between them.
I've never agreed with Sam more.
Paul, you know so much. I've never known a scientist before, she said, finishing her scalp massage and sitting down near him. I know the laws that govern matter and energy. Because of that, I understand the universe.
I understand the universe. I ponder my orb and I understand.
Well, that's quite a lot, isn't it? Julie said. I don't know that much, but I do know the rule for all games involving a ball. You know, football, baseball, volleyball.
Volleyball, racquetball, and I was trying to think, and I was like, nutball, which isn't that funny till you realize that every man, everywhere, every boy, everywhere has played a game where they've thrown some object at each other's nuts.
What?
And ask anybody. From anywhere in the world, be like, hey, you ever played a game where you like throw something at each other's nuts? And dudes will be like, yeah, and you're like, what do you call it? And they're like, nutball, and it's like, who told you to call it? And I was like, no one, we just did it.
What?
It's a weird thing.
What do you think is the, like...
Y'all played nutball?
What's behind that? Why do men instinctively want to hit each other's balls?
Maybe it's for the same reason we want to like run into each other in football. I don't know, we're just idiots. It's like a self-destructive.
Like, why would you want... Okay, so like as someone who's played nutball, was it more about the hitting other boys' balls, or was it the getting hit?
Yeah, you don't want to get hit. You don't want to get. It's
okay,
about your...
so the pain of getting hit in the balls is kind of like worth it to be able to hit other men's balls.
Yeah, I mean, it's a test of dexterity.
It's a male bonding ritual, isn't it? It's like we're gonna inflict small amounts of pain on the most intimate masculine parts of us, you know, on a certain way of thinking. To bond, right? Oh, what's the female equivalent of that? Honestly, just kissing at sleepovers, which seems funner. Okay. Since you're in physical education, maybe you can help me. My mother says I walk like a duck. My own mother. You can imagine what strangers say. Can you help me? Sure, I will. Come on.
It's because he imprinted on a mother duck. His mom is a duck.
She said, pulling him to his feet. They walked slowly out the living room with Julie making sure his feet pointed straight ahead. In a minute, they were back. Sam, look at my feet. They left again, taking a route through the dining room into a hall and back to the living room. Of course, Julie said on their return trip, we have an advantage, being members of the church. Starting with a temple marriage, kneeling in the temple together, committing to love each other for time and eternity. Well, it's very important to me. I don't want anything less, do you?
It's so advantageous.
You don't have an advantage. I cannot stress this enough. You have more delusions, leading you to believe you have an advantage.
Basically the same divorce rate, I'm sorry.
You've been sold the idea that you have an advantage, so you think that you will beat the odds. You will not beat the odds. They were gone again. It hasn't been easy, has it? Julie said on the next trip, looking at his temple recommend. Wow, that's...
Dr. Nebraska.
Keeping yourself worthy. There are plenty of opportunities to go wrong in this life. Is it really... I mean, like... What's she saying when she refers to that? Like, oh, it's not been easy keeping yourself worthy. I feel like they're basically only talking about sex.
Yeah.
All the other ones are not that hard. Like,
yeah.
I love coffee, but like, before you get into coffee, it's like, fine. You don't, it's fine.
I could probably give up coffee and be okay.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. Paul stopped, walking. There are. Lara came into the living room. Well, it's finally ready. I bet you've all been starving to death. Oh no, Paul said. This has been one of the most interesting times of my life. In these few minutes, Julie's taught me how to walk and what to do with nose hairs. Lara's mouth fell open. Julie took Paul's arm and they walked grandly into the dining room with their feet straight ahead. If my mother could see me now, Paul exclaimed. Lara looked at me and I shrugged my shoulders. Lara, Julie asked, did you know Paul is an Eagle Scout? After supper, Paul confidently announced, if you want, I'll teach you all semaphore signalling. What was the point of that chapter? Why was it about these two other people?
It's...
Just as a vehicle for Jack to teach religious lessons?
It's...
Are these characters going to be in the book more?
I'm afraid so.
I don't really need to feel this riled up.
I know,
but
mean...
I am a bit confused. Like,
no,
where was the Sam in that chapter? Why was Lara relegated to the kitchen the whole time?
I think we're in the middle of a book. I think this is Jack Wayland trying to fill some space. In his defense, though, I've been to some Mormon functions where this is about as lively as it got.
Mm-hmm. And he did use it to teach a number of lessons about movies, about refined sugar.
How to be extremely boring.
How to be extremely boring. The fact that men don't have to do anything and they can still be extremely desirable to really hot women who know every ball game.
Every ball game?
Which is like, you know, she's top tier if she knows every ball game.
Oh, yeah. Think of all the sports they'll watch together.
So many sports. So, I assume Sam's just going to get with Lara and like, it's like, we all know that. So he doesn't want to write some like crazy intricate conflict because we haven't got that many chapters left. Well, we're kind of only halfway through though. So, like, what's the rest of it gonna be? I feel like Jack does a lot of, like, chapter to, like, almost like every chapter is, like, a contained story. But there's not necessarily these, like, things that are building throughout. If you know what I mean?
This is actually
like, obviously he's gonna marry Laura.
This is what my dissertation is on. About how Jack's book actually counts. I mean, each, like you said, each smaller part contains the whole of it.
As above, so below.
Exactly. This is esoteric
Yeah.
stuff. That's what my dissertation is about, is how this is actually an occult text.
And it's cool that he's breaking literary molds, like ever since the birth of human existence. There's just been a general thing that we see a story as, you know? There's something that builds, there's a conflict, and then the conflict gets resolved.
This is so slice
Jack doesn't
of life.
feel the need to do that, yeah. It's just
Dostoevsky
like zooming in. Yeah. You're in on this date between these two characters who you will never see again.
We feel the lack of chemistry. We can't escape because this is real life. This isn't a fantasy.
Yeah, dude.
Jack, you've done it again.
Jack.